Last week's Premier's conference has caused an upheaval in the state government's budget plans. Mr Booth said he'll have to go back to the drawing board, but at least he says New South Wales is in the fortunate position of being able to keep its deficit in check.
But our budget this year was a deficit of 39.5 million, and I think within the next week we'll be able to announce that we've come in pretty well on target. And that's been a major, I think, achievement as far as the government is concerned. And when you compare the federal government and the other states and their enormous blowout in their deficits, I think New South Wales has done remarkably well.
Nevertheless, the Treasurer says the costs will have to be offset by increased taxes and charges and possibly reductions in services. Public transport commuters are expected to be the first to feel the brunt of the rises, with increased fares on buses, trains and ferries. Hospital charges are also expected to increase in September. Electricity is another area the government is anticipated to hike prices, with one source putting the increase as high as 30%, following last year's electricity price freeze. Tobacco tax could be another source of revenue for the government, and motorists could be reaching deeper into their pockets with increased registration fees, licences and penalties. Mr Booth says it's a no-win situation and that the rises are inevitable.
The only ways that we can adjust our budget are either increasing taxes, increasing charges or reducing the services to the community. So it's a very narrow field, and hopefully when we come down with our budget in the latter part of September, we won't have to increase drastically our taxes and charges, but of course this is could be a possibility depending upon our review as far as our budget strategy is concerned.
About 90 cents a household. That's how much the organisers of the Red Shield Appeal door knock estimate the people of Newcastle gave. The door knock only makes up about 40% of the total appeal, with postal donations and money from business and professional people making up the rest. The money will be used in the Salvation Army's community and social welfare programs which will cost some $10 million throughout Australia this year. In Newcastle, 2,000 collectors from service clubs, church groups and scouting organisations volunteered their services, and they should be well pleased with their effort. The 1983 appeal netted some $10,000 more than last year. But did the Army anticipate such an increase in the current economic climate? Captain John Rees.
That's always been a little bit of a worry, because obviously there are a number of people who are not able to give as they have done in the past. But we believe that in Newcastle especially, people are aware that there is a need. And it seems as if people approve of the work that the Army's doing. A lot of people believe in the work of the Army. And so we were hoping that people recognising not only the need, but also recognising the work of the Army, that they would respond accordingly.
And they have?
They have, yes, they have.
Mr Mark says diversification in service stations has become an economic necessity, with most councils throughout the state recognising the need.
It's common knowledge that service stations do in fact sell many more items than they would be strictly entitled to if councils were to enforce the provisions that apply in terms of residential zoned land. But I think the fact that at least 3/4 of all the service stations in this state are in fact on residential land, that there has to be compromise, and basically councils take the view that unless there are specific complaints from local residents, then no action needs to be taken.
Why do you think the council is opposing sale of goods other than petrol products on service stations now?
I think one has to accept the fact that they have been in receipt of complaints of some sort, but one can only deduce that those complaints have come from vested interests because they see their own sales of these particular items, and I refer specifically to video movies, that as a result of the effect on their business, they've attempted
The member for Newcastle, Mr Alan Morris, made the announcement today. He says the appointment of a permanent family court judge in Newcastle will eliminate backlogs and delays.
I think it will mean that that both people with family court issues and their legal representatives will have a better chance to plan and coordinate where they're going to and when they'll be heard and how long the cases will take. There's always been an uncertainty as to how long it would take to finalise a family court matter. We've had judges working in Newcastle from Sydney for 2 to 3 weeks a month. That was extended in recent years, and they've certainly worked very hard to pick up that backlog, but it's always been uncertain.
How long has Newcastle been asking for a permanent judge?
I think it goes back to about 1975-76 when the family courts were first established.
Subjects for this exhibition are his wife and his daughter, but water, whether it be in a pool or the ocean, has captivated him.
I've always had a fascination for water since I was a little kid. We used to spend a lot of time at the beach, and we go away a lot. And both our parents live on the coast in Queensland, and we spend a fair bit of time on the surf and around the surf.
Scott is intrigued by the way the sun plays on the surface of the water, forming patterns. He has specialised in the airbrush and is travelling throughout Queensland giving seminars on the technique. He says it creates softer, more tranquil images in his work.
Both shipbuilders have tendered for the contract, but at its meeting in Newcastle yesterday, the UTA would not indicate which one was in the running. Carrington Slipways is yet to start work on a third Manly ferry, identical to the two completed by the State dockyard. The new $10 million contract involves the completion of 5 twin-hulled ferries capable of holding up to 250 passengers. It's believed officials are keen to see the entire contract go to the one shipbuilder, and that could be one in Newcastle, according to a statement made by the Managing Director of the UTA, Mr Kelvin Edgar.
There's been 2 tenders received from Newcastle. They're being assessed at the present time, and it would be hoped for Newcastle's sake that the successful tender will eventually come from Newcastle.
How optimistic are you of that?
I'm fairly optimistic that it will probably occur that way.
So you expect to be able to announce soon that Newcastle will have a new contract for 5 more ferries?
I would hope in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Alderman John Tate says the public seminar concept, which has been successful in other states, will also give the public a better understanding of where the money goes.
It's thought desirable to have such a seminar because what's happening is that council is having continuing difficulties with funding. The money that is being collected in rates is not going as far as what we would like it to go, and that situation is likely to increase. If it does into the coming years, well then it seems reasonable that the people who pay these rates have a better opportunity to have an influence into how these rates are spent. And a public seminar on the council's budget is something that would be worthwhile in the early stages of next year, to give people the opportunity to just express their views on how the rates that are collected are being spent on their behalf.
Thanks, John, and good morning, everybody. Well, racing today is at Rose Hill, and here with his thoughts on the meeting, it's good morning to the Silver Fox.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, it's a pretty good meeting down there. 9 races on the card, and it's a 5 to 12 start. I think one of the better bits of the meeting could be Domino. Now, it's the son of the now deceased Gun Sind. It's a Rose Hill specialist, ran second to Uno Patera last start, and it is down in class. It's going to have its work cut out, though. It's got 57 kilos. There's horses like Wimbledon from Newcastle, having its third run back from a spell, and of course that brilliant mare, Abington Lass, who was the last start winner in Sydney. But we'll have the daily double. My numbers are 4 and 1. Golden Senorita to beat Domino, and the trifecta numbers are 1, 3 and 11. Domino to beat Eye of the Wind and Abington Lass. Now the other meetings are on at Moonee Valley, Doomben and Grafton. Of course the best bet at Doomben is in race 7, number 4, Anata Gold. Have a nice day and good luck.
Thanks, Fox, and let's hope you back a winner. American motor racing veteran Al Unser has won the 800-kilometre Cleveland 500, taking the lead in the 108th lap. The race was run in far from perfect conditions.
Temperatures in the 90s in Cleveland gave IndyCar drivers one of the most grueling tests of the year. Mario Andretti led the first 35 laps, but an incident with Al Unser Jr. took him out of the lead, and later overheating took him out of the race. Rick Mears was involved in an accident with defending champion Bobby Rahal, and neither driver was a factor after that. The race came down to Al Unser Sr. and Pete Halsmer. Unser taking the lead for good on lap 108 after Halsmer pitted for the final time in a stop longer than he had hoped for. The win for the 44-year-old Unser is his second in a row on the Indy circuit in a 3-hour-plus race that was hotter than he would have liked.
Ooh, boy, is it, I'm telling you. I didn't know how long it was going to be, but this was too long.
With the victory, Unser has now finished either first or second in all 4 Champ Car races this year.
The matches set down today in the National Panasonic Australian Schoolboys Rugby League Open Division Championships are as follows. At 10 o'clock this morning, New South Wales Combined High Schools play the President's 13. Then at 11:30, Queensland State Secondary Schools play the ACT. New South Wales Combined Catholic Colleges have the bye in the morning. In the evening at 6 o'clock, ACT play the New South Wales Combined Catholic Colleges. And then at 7:30, New South Wales Combined High Schools play the Queensland State Secondary Schools, with the President's 13 having the bye. And now with a report on last night's Newcastle Kern Falcons Basketball Awards, here's Janelle Provost.
It was a chance for the Falcons to give each other a pat on the back for their efforts throughout the year. Although the team failed to make the final playoff, the players' enthusiasm hasn't waned. The big man of the court, George Morrow, took out 2 of the major prizes. He was voted the most valuable player of the year and was also awarded the trophy for the leading rebounder. And here's George in full flight.
Tries, the shot doesn't go in. Morrow went high and just pulled it down to him. Turns it up the court now. Damien Keogh. They go high, the big men. There's the big man, Utov. Missed with that shot, and Morrow came away with the rebound.
The Best Defence Player award went to Ian Rebilliot, and Mike Johnson took out the Most Improved Player title. The Kern Falcons say they are confident things will look up in the coming season. And with Kern Constructions continuing to financially back the team for another 3 years, the officials say they can now concentrate on improving the play. The The presentation of the Certificate of Appreciation was made at the Newcastle City Council chambers last night by the Lord Mayor Alderman Joy Cummings. The award went to the 16 Transport Squadron, an Army Reserve unit which was established in 1948. Since that time, the squadron has become an important link in the emergency and rescue network. In the major Hunter Valley floods of 1955, almost every man in the unit was called to assist in ferrying food and supplies to isolated areas in Maitland, Lismore and Taree. The squadron was also involved in the salvage work on the Cygna and has assisted water police at Port Stephens in the search for lost swimmers. As a gesture of the continuing goodwill of Council, the Commanding Officer Major Brad Keating presented the Lord Mayor with a plaque featuring the 16 transport squadron's insignia.
Well, it's not that serious. It will be another couple of weeks out of the game, but obviously I couldn't get through yesterday's medical, and it's sort of hard sitting on the sideline, but it is on the mend.
Obviously that's a big disappointment, missing the test on Saturday.
Well, it is. I've been involved in the last 6 winning tests, and I was very keen to be up there again this weekend, but there's something that you can't rush, and obviously I've got a premiership to win with Parramatta, and that's the first priority.
Still touching on the test scene, Peter, I suppose there's a lot of pressure on the current Kangaroos now, the test players, to maintain that winning streak, which is an envy, really.
Certainly it is, yes. It's once you get to win a few games on the trot, people start expecting you to win, and the New Zealand side, the current New Zealand side, is probably the best they've fielded for a long time, so they'll certainly feel the pressure up there, but it's a
More than 30 coaches carrying almost 1,500 rugby players and supporters from 12 countries involved in the International Golden Oldies tournament in Sydney arrived at around midday. On their arrival, they received a hot meal and plenty of free wine. Since last Thursday, the Golden Oldies, over 35 years old, have played matches in Sydney against each other and participated in the social side of rugby in grand style. Today's hosts for the visitors included Newcastle Rugby Union identities who made the most of sharing experiences and tokens with the Golden Oldies. Organised events of the day included a bush band, while the spontaneous erupted in a fling with the nearest partner. And, of course, the traditional rugby boat race, won by an American team. A possible omen for the test between the United States Eagles and Australia on Saturday?